So making your own cold smoked salmon is actually a lot easier than you would think. You first need a really beautiful piece of salmon, really fresh. Get to know your fishmonger, and the first thing you're going to need to do is pin bone it. So you're going to get a knife and just run it along the bones, and you'll see them begin to pop out. Then get your fish pliers or a strong pair of tweezers and just pull those bones out. You're going to have to work all the way along the whole thing. Pin boning complete, we can get on with the cure. You want 25 to 35% sugar to salt. I'm using flaky sea salt. If you can only get the coarse stuff, then just grind it down in a spice mill. And I'm also using muscovado sugar, which I think adds a nice kind of flavour to the salmon. With the hot smoking salmon, I actually use molasses, which gives you even more of a caramelly flavour. But you don't really need that with the cold smoked salmon. And you can see we've also got some dill in there. So what you need to do is just mix this really well together first. Now this is a really big piece of salmon. The fillet by itself weighs almost 1.9 kgs. The whole salmon would have been at least 5 kgs. If you've got two sides of salmon, then when you've actually applied the cure, you lay them flesh side together, one on top of the other while they're curing. You can see the mixture's going in well now. Once you've got your sugar and your salt mixed together, turn the salmon over to begin with. Take some of the cure and just rub it quite generously into the skin. It's mainly the other side of the salmon that's going to be doing the curing part, but I always think it's good to have a bit underneath too. You can cut your salmon in half and put it into two smaller containers. It will have to actually be cut in half to fit into the smoker anyway. Apply your cure. Rub it on nicely. And you really need it to be quite thick, particularly on the thicker part of the salmon. The thicker the bit of salmon, the thicker the layer of cure should be. Tip the whole lot on. Pat it down nicely. And then we just cover it and leave it in the fridge for anything from 12 hours for a small side to, this will probably take about 20 hours, maybe 24 hours. You can tell when it's done because it goes kind of dark orangey colour and becomes quite a bit stiff. And we'll have a look at that anyway once we've finished curing it and before we smoke it. Once the salmon has finished curing, just remove the cure and we'll just rinse this off in some cold water. Just put the salmon into some cold water and just rinse off all the cure. You'll now see the salmon's got a lovely dark colour. It feels quite stiff to the touch. That's a nicely cured piece of salmon. Place the salmon onto clean tea towels and just pat it dry. Just remove as much excess moisture as you can. We then need to hang the salmon somewhere to dry for 2 to 3 hours until the surface becomes tacky. Either that, put it on a rack in the fridge overnight. Okay, so the salmon's been drying out in the fridge overnight, covered with a tea towel, and you can see it's now got a nice tacky texture. Before we put it into the smoker, we're just going to make some cuts in it. Just cutting into the thicker parts of the flesh. That just allows the smoke to penetrate a bit more easily. In order to actually fit it in, it has to fit on these. A little bit big, so we're just going to cut it in half. and we can place each half of the salmon onto a rack. So place the salmon into the smoker, making sure that the vents on the top are open, and obviously using the cold smoking attachment. And this tube here connects the smoking cabinet to the actual smoking unit. Inside the little box here we have the bowl to collect the biscuits. The smoking unit there will show you what temperature it's smoking at. Obviously you want it as cold as possible and below 80 degrees F, and here you set the timing. For smoked salmon we're going to set this for about 6 hours, and we're using a mixture of apple and oak chips which I've alternated throughout the smoking process.